Welcome back to another episode of Hey Fam with Dr. Sam I Am, featuring Dr. Sabrine Mutawali, bringing you the best in educational tips to help you and your students thrive.
Hey fam, Dr. Sam I Am here again, back to you with another video. Before we get started, please make sure that you like. Don't forget to be a blessing by sharing this video with someone else. Do me a favor, don't forget to subscribe to my channel right on below. And also do me another favor. I know I'm asking for a ton of favors today. Go ahead and click that bell so that you can receive notification whenever I post a brand new video. So parents, I'm back again with our 911 Help Dr. Sam I Am series. So this one I'm going to call modeling. Today we're going to talk about how we can model learning in this time of remote learning and virtual learning for our students. You know the saying, you better practice what you preach. So if you expect your student to be studious even in the remote learning environment, we want to make sure that it's being modeled to them as well. So here are 5 tips to help my parents and guardians with modeling for your child during this remote learning. Tip number 1, do what I do. You know, we play Simon Says, so we're going to play Simon Says even in our at-home classroom during this time of remote learning and virtual learning. And so if you have the luxury of staying at home, and yes, I did call it a luxury because to spend time with your child is a luxury. I know some of you are probably rolling your eyes and pull your hair out because you have to balance work, home life, and now homeschooling. But I just want to commend you because you're doing an amazing job. And so you have the honor and the pleasure now of educating your child within the home. And so when we talk about do what I do, we're going to play this version of Simon Says, where if you are working from home and you have that set time, that set place in your home where you're working, you do the same thing for your child. Remember, our children are like sponge. So what they see, what they hear, and what they experience is what they tend to repeat. So you want to make sure that you are modeling what your expectations, what you expect of them. Tip number 2, and like I always tell my high schoolers, I have my handy dandy cell phone. Tip number 2 is netiquette. I know that's a pretty little term, isn't it? Netiquette is a combination of the internet and etiquette. Netiquette, the two come together. And so there is just certain things that you do and you do not want to do, the do's and the don'ts of the internet and virtual learning, remote learning, okay? When you get into the classroom, sometimes the teacher automatically will have the mics muted and will have the cameras off. If you feel free to have your child to turn their camera on, by all means do so. But it is not required by many districts because of privacy laws for the child to actually have the camera on. It is a free choice if you decide to have the camera on during the time of remote learning or the live instruction where they get to see their peers. But it is a great way for them to interact with their peers, and it minimizes the distractions, believe it or not, by having that camera on, because now everyone can see what is happening in the background. And so we want to make sure, and then there's, of course, if you do not want the areas in your home to be shown, there are virtual backgrounds that can be added to the live recording, whether it's from Zoom, whether it's from Microsoft Teams, and all the different platforms that are now being used during this time of remote learning. And so again, if you don't want your background, if you don't have something set up like my background, then you may want to go ahead and have a virtual background if you decide to turn your camera on. Again, it is not required, but it is suggested so that, again, you can interact with your teachers can see your face, because guess what? We miss our students. Oh, we miss them so much. So netiquette, another tip for netiquette is please make sure that you minimize the noise in the background, especially if you're going to be speaking on the camera, or you're answering a problem during the time of class. The child is answering a problem during the time of class. So again, you want to make sure that you're modeling for your child those netiquettes, okay? And actually you can find a ton of netiquettes online, and there's some funny videos about real life conference calls or real life Zoom calls that you can watch, and they're hilarious. But I mean, these are the things that are happening. Number 3, communication. Communication is so important. Okay, you need to, again, model to your child how to effectively communicate with their teacher, how to effectively communicate with their classmates, even if their camera are on or off. Okay, they want to be engaged in the classroom by verbally, responding back to their teacher, giving feedback, whether it is something they want to answer the problem, they want to, ask questions, clarifying questions, and different things like that. You want to make sure that your child is verbally communicated, and as well as, of course, communication through email, communication through the chat boxes and the different platforms that they're using. So communication is essential, and parents, please model that. Even as you're on your Zoom calls, your team calls, your child is listening, and sometimes your child is actually watching. Okay, so your interactions, you may turn off your camera, you may turn off your microphone, and you're on your phone, you're doing other things, you're rolling your eyes because you don't want to be there. I get it. Somebody else is guilty of it. But at the same token, is learning how to be mindful, because again, we have 2 other special eyes that are watching us. Tip number 4, visual aids. We in education call it walls that teach. There's something we like to call anchor charts. And these are charts that we create that will demonstrate a specific problem or outline a specific cycle or a concept that is being taught. Then, of course, what I always rely on, Dollar Tree. You can do the days of the week. You can also do the months of the year. You can talk about money and all these different things. You can go to Dollar Tree. You all, resources for your walls are not expensive. There's so many inexpensive resources. And then you can just buy you a big thing of chart paper and create it yourself. Okay? Do it yourself, DIY. I am an advocate, a big believer in DIYing. All right, and get your child involved, because then it will show you how much they have been listening and what they have been learning in class. Because if they can tell you what to put on the anchor chart, that they'll remember it in the future, or for whenever, if they are in a subject, or if they're in a grade level where they begin taking exams, then you know that they know the information. So when they get to that end of the year benchmarks and end of the year assessments, they know exactly what it is that they have learned, and they can continue the learning process. And then that also helps with building on prior knowledge, okay? So, the days of the week, they may remember the days of the week. So now let's move to the months. Now, how does that come back into the entire year? We know there are 7 days in the week. There are 52 weeks in a year, 365 days in a year, or 366, depending if it's a leap year. Simple things like that. If you're in the upper levels in high school, maybe it is the circle of life, like we like to call it, or photosynthesis in science, how the plants, how they go from a seed, where the water, sunlight, all these different things come in. You can put that all on an anchor chart, or you can just put these concepts up. There are things that you can print online, right if you have a printer at home, or go to FedEx, print it out, get all these little files that you have, and print them out and stick them on the wall, just to keep your child learning. You want walls that teach, okay? And so the last thing, tip number 5, is get creative. And that kind of goes along with tip number 4, where I was talking about DIY and visual aids. Tip number 5, there's something we like to call in education PBL, which is problem-based learning, okay, or project-based learning. Then we also have inquiry-based learning. There's so many different, different acronyms in education, and unless you're an educator, or you live with an educator, you've been around an educator, so you listen to videos like this, podcasts and different things like that, there are some that you may not be familiar with. And so project-based learning, ladies and gentlemen, is literally where the child learns by doing a project. And so creativity is a big one. You want to get creative now that the child is learning from home. So for instance, if I was teaching the units of measurements to my elementary school students, guess what I will be doing? I will bake cookies. I will bake a cake. Okay? I will build in that home economics with that math and units of measurement, and we're going to go through that by doing at-home projects. Okay, simple things like that. You know, one of the things that they do when they're teaching science and teaching the students about plants, they do what? Plastic cup, soil, seed, water, sitting on the windowsill, and watch the plant grow. Okay, so these are different things that you just got to get creative. One of my favorite places to find creative projects, Pinterest. Pin it, pin it, pin it, pin it. Pinterest, ladies and gentlemen, great place to find projects, okay? And then, of course, you can always Google it. You can always ask Siri, all these different, we have access to so much information and so much resources. It's just knowing what it is that you're looking for and how to actually look for it. So parents, I do hope that this helps. Modeling is today's focus. Again, tip number 1, do what I do. Tip number 2, netiquette. Tip number 3, communication. Tip number 4, visual aids or walls that teach. And of course, that when we talk about visuals, that can also mean manipulatives, okay? So things that they can use with their hands. And then tip number 5, get creative. So of course, you know that I want to leave you with an education quote at the end of all of my wonderful videos. And so today's quote actually comes from Confucius. And Confucius says, education breeds confidence. Confidence breeds hope. And hope breeds peace. Parents, again, you're doing an amazing job. I am here to help. This is why this series is called 911. Help, Dr. Sam I Am. You are doing an excellent job. Continue the great work. Continue pressing forward and push on and see what the end's going to be. Love you all. Have a great day.